Greetings, and thanks for joining me today. My name is Rich Kerr, and I'm with AlphaSoftware. I'd like to take just a few moments to share with you a demonstration of an application we've built for a major metropolitan police department. The idea behind this mobile app was to give police officers a convenient way to capture data when they're in the field. The various data elements have been grouped into different pages, which we'll look at in just a moment. Also on this main menu, you'll see a button labeled Tap to Start Timer. I'll go ahead and do that, so it'll record how long it takes for me to fill out the various data elements and then submit. There are also links to different online resources, such as a police bulletin, which has daily news from the police department, or an app tutorial that gives me a video on best practices. Of course, there's a button to then submit the report when I'm done. Notice the section labeled Usage Mode, where we can indicate whether or not we're in training or live mode. For the demo, I'm going to indicate training mode. We can now see that mentioned at the top of the menu, so it's easy to know whether or not you're in the right mode. Let's jump into the date and location section. Notice the field at the top labeled Date and Time of Stop. So when I have an encounter with someone in the field, I can simply tap Set to Current Time, and it's got the date and time listed there. I also want to indicate whether or not the person I'm interacting with is an adult or juvenile. So I'll tap that field, which gives me a convenient drop-down to select one of the possible options. The next field, labeled Event Recorded, has a drop-down list as well, but in this case, there could be multiple correct answers. So maybe the event was recorded with my body-worn camera as well as a security camera from a nearby business. I'll hit the check mark when I'm done. Now, where it says address of stop, here's an area where you would enter the address of where the stop occurred. You could simply tap in there and use your on-screen keyboard to enter that data, right? But because we're on our mobile device, we'll take advantage of this app's capability to pull in the address from the GPS satellite. We'll tap the button labeled Get GPS Address, and within moments, the current address is loaded right into the application. Not only does it capture the address and the neighborhood, we see Hyde Park listed there, then Chicago, the county is Cook, state, and zip. We've got the latitude and longitude, but in the case where we're near a commercial establishment or a business, it brings in a description of that as well. So we can see the location category is amenity, the location type is pharmacy, and the business organization name is Walgreens. Okay. I also could take a look at a map view to get some additional context. So once that address is in there, I can tap Show Map View, and it'll take me to a map of the location, and there may even be photos based on how robust the online database is for that particular location. Okay. All right, I'm back in the app. So I've now that quickly got those initial data points completed. At the top left, there's a button that'll take me back to the main menu. And so now let's check out the contact info page. With contact info, there's some pretty straightforward fields such as last, first, middle for the name, nickname, date of birth. So let's just fill in a few data elements. I'll go to the last name field, and I'll tap in the field and use my keyboard to enter the last name. Okay. And of course, we can do a correction with using our backspace, or even use simple tap, right? Whatever method you like best for data entry, that's going to work on your phone. So I'll enter Corleone. Now for the first name, I'll tap and I'll simply use my phone's microphone. So instead of using the keyboard, we'll tap the mic. Michael. And there's the first name. So speech to text speeds up the data entry process. Let's do that with the nickname field as well. College boy. And there we go. So we've got the first name and last name in there. We've got the person's nickname or alias. Let's go to the date of birth field. So when you need to enter dates, you have this scrollable element where I can select the month, the date, and the appropriate year. So it makes it super fast, super easy to go ahead and enter a value. And there we go. Now for the username, I'm going to tap in that area. This is for constructing the email address, right? So I'll type Corleone. And then for the domain part of the email, Since such a significant percentage of people use Gmail and Yahoo Mail, we've given those in a drop-down list, so I can just tap the @gmail.com part. And now I've got his email captured. Now, it's likely that when you encounter the person, it's not at their home, right? You might encounter the person somewhere away from their home address, though it could be their home address, right? In this case, we're in front of a Walgreens. So if I wanted to, enter some other address for their home, I simply tap where it says home address, right? And we can simply enter what that address is, right? Now, after typing it in, it'll do what we like to call autocorrect. So you notice I just entered the 8811 South Clyde, Chicago. It went and did the full correction to pull in the zip code component, the appropriate spelling of the entire address. It also calculated how many miles away that is from the current location. So that's 3.9 miles away from where we're having the encounter. And if the stop called for me to actually drive to their home location from where we are, I can tap and get directions. So right away, I now have a quick and convenient way to see how long it's going to take to get to their location, right? So there we go. There's our directional map. We're going to go ahead and go back into the app. And there's spaces to enter the phone for the home phone, cell phone, etc. Now, there's an area for physical appearance. I'll tap where it says gender. I'll say male. Where it says feet for the height, we'll put 5. For the inches, I'll put 7. And for the weight, I'll type in 159. Pretty straightforward. For the person's build, we've got a drop-down list. I'll type or select average. Eye color, we'll go with brown. Hair color, we'll go with black. The haircut, let's go with, we'll say bowl cut. You can see how fast it is to enter the data when you can select those elements from a pull down rather than having to type them in. Okay, so we'll go with the skin tone, and we'll go with racial classification, scars, marks, or tattoos, facial hair. And of course, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So where it says photo, tap to capture image, we'll do that. We'll go ahead and tap that element and capture a picture of the person we're having an encounter with. So we choose OK, and now that picture is part of the record. Okay, so that's a very convenient aspect of the tool, is we now have the picture there, and the picture can be marked up. If there was something unique in the image that you wanted to call attention to, notice the pen icon in the lower right-hand corner. So if I tap that, it opens up an editable view of the image. I can adjust my pen color and weight, right? So maybe I want to use, say, a green color with a thick or medium sized pen tip. I choose done, and now I can actually draw on the image, right? And so if there was something specific that I want to call attention to, you can mark that photo up. I'll now tap save, and that marked up version of the picture becomes part of the record. And I'll hit the check mark to complete my entry process. Okay. If you want to indicate something about their clothing, there's an add clothing item. I'll tap item, and we'll say that he had on a leather jacket, right? We hit the check mark. Okay. What color was it? We'll go in and choose, we'll say that it was a black leather jacket. There we go. All right. You could add more clothing items if you wanted to. So there's not just the one. You say add clothing item, then it creates another instance to record multiple clothing items. So we'll go back to item, and then we'll say that he had on a hoodie. You get the idea. And we haven't made the color component required, though that you certainly could do so. Now, previously when I wanted to go back to the main menu, I used that back button at the top left. But you can also just go to the next page in the sequence of pages. So at the bottom it says go to employer school info. Well, that was the next page after contact info from the main menu. So I'll jump ahead to that. Okay, so now we're going to indicate whether or not we're making a record of where Mr. Corleone works. We could go with employer, or maybe where he goes to school, or other, right? So I'm going to go to, I'll say, where he goes to school. Maybe he's a juvenile, right? So then we'll type in the name of his school. And we'll say Whitney Young High School. And of course, we could have used the voice to speech as well. Now, after typing that in, if I do lookup address, if it can find that in the online database, it does. So it actually corrected that to the full name, Whitney M. Young Magnet High School, and it entered the address as well. Okay. So now let's go to driver and car info. With the driver and car info, we've got whether or not we've identified the driver with some kind of verification. If I tap yes, then it asks me, well, what kind of identification? ID provided. So I now have a drop down where I could choose driver's license or school ID or maybe both. So if I had left it untouched or put it on no, I'm not prompted for those other elements. But when I choose yes, that's when I get the prompt for other data points. Of course, there's a section here for a picture as well. Maybe you want to take a picture of their school ID or their license. Now, there's a section called vehicle licensing. So if there was a vehicle involved, we might want to record information about that. So if I leave it alone or leave it on no, there's no additional questions. But if I choose yes, then I get areas to indicate, for example, the license plate number. So we could go in and add that information. We could indicate what type of plate. We'll say passenger. What state is it from? There's a drop down with all the states. So as you can see, the idea is to really make it super simple to go in and add data where possible using a drop down, and where data does have to be entered, you can use the on-screen keyboard or the speech-to-text capture. And then we can make dynamic drop downs. For example, where it says car info, if I tap where it says make, let's say the driver was in a Honda. So I'll scroll down until I see Honda in the list. And then the next field labeled model will only show me Hondas. So I can tap on Accord or Pilot or whatever. If the car was not a Honda, if I go back to the make and say it was actually a Cadillac and I hit the check mark, now when I go to model, we see, a Cadillac model. So we'll go ahead and tap on Escalade. So again, we're trying to cut out the opportunities for error where possible and make it super simple to get the data added. There's also a place here where you could capture a photo of the car. We can also indicate what was the disposition of the stop or any enforcement action that was taken. So again, if I leave it on no or unselected, there's no additional data here. But if I choose yes, then, well, what was the disposition? We could say it was a personal service citation. What was the personal service citation number? So I can tap in there and enter what that is. And then were there any violations or charges that I want to indicate? And you could do so, again, typing or use your voice to make that happen. Let's go ahead to the next page, which is labeled gang information. So I'm going to tap where it says gang/faction. This is a drop-down list of most of the known street gangs in the United States. And it's a long list. So I'm going to tap where it says search and add and start typing the name of the gang to narrow the focus, right? So you've got this huge list. We can narrow the focus down, and I'll tap on that selection and hit the check mark. Now, if I wanted some additional information about that street gang, I have a lookup gang button that will go and do a quick search online to give me some more information, so I'm a bit more informed about that aspect of what's going on. Okay. We can indicate like what type of criminal activity was the person involved in, and there's a drop-down list of common things. So here I'm going to say intimidation, robbery, and we'll say graffiti and tagging. And I'll hit the check mark. If that list didn't include what you wanted to say, there's the other section where you can describe more info. Let's go on to the causation info. So was there probable cause? I'm going to tap yes. What was the reasonable articulable suspicion for stop? So I'll tap there. There's my drop down of the different reasons why I would have stopped the person. So I'm going to choose as described by victim or witness. And I'll also choose gang narcotic related enforcement and hit the check mark. Right. So that's another one of those lists where you can select more than one. Was there a protective pat down consented to? We indicate yes or no. Whether or not it was actually conducted, was a receipt given, yes or no. and again, reasonable articulable suspicion for the pat-down. There's an area to indicate whether or not a weapon or other contraband was discovered. If I choose yes, then it's asking whether or not I confirmed the contraband with a field test. So if I choose confirmed, it says actual substances and weights. If I choose not confirmed, it says suspected substances and weights. I'm going to choose heroin, and I'll tap for the amount of weight. We'll say 11 grams. Okay. You get the idea. And there's a space for other if there was something else discovered that wasn't cocaine, heroin, or cannabis. Weapons found. If I tap yes, there's a field labeled which weapons with a drop down where I can select multiple items, right? And we hit the check mark. Makes it super simple to go through and grab those elements. Now, where it says go to narrative, I'll go there. This is where we would put the description of what occurred, the details. So I'll tap where it says narrative, and I'm going to use my speech-to-text feature once again. We observed Mr. Corleone driving erratically. We pulled him over and also discovered he was driving without a driver's license or insurance, period. We also discovered the presence of heroin in the car, so an arrest was made. So you can see how fast it captured what I was saying. And notice that it didn't get his last name quite right. So I could tap up there and just do a correction. I can either just delete and bring my keyboard back up and enter his name, or I could just say it again to the microphone with a little bit more clarity. So whenever the text-to-speech or speech-to-text doesn't grab it the way you want, correcting is a very straightforward matter, right? But everything else, and then I want to enter a period here. Without insurance. There we go. And I'll hit the check mark, and there's my description. Now I want to capture my signature, so where it says officer's signature, I'll tap, and I can simply write directly on my screen because it's a touch screen. There's my signature, and where it says citizen signature, I can tap there, and we'll enter the citizen's signature. He'll go ahead and sign, and now we've got the signature captured along with the officer as well. So the idea here, guys, is to really capture that information quickly, accurately, and then we'll go ahead and hit stop timer so we can see that it took 17 minutes to fill out the form. Okay, and when we're done, we go ahead and we submit, and it's all over. So I hope you found this interesting. If you'd like to learn more, please feel free to email me. I am rich.kerr at AlphaSoftware.com, just as it sounds, AlphaSoftware.com, rich.kerr at AlphaSoftware.com. And if you want to reach me via phone, I'm 781-462-6714. Thank you so much, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Have a great day.